They tell you to follow their success story. Well, you better think again. This is 2023, and the ball game has changed.
Welcome to HVAC Greatness, your weekly source for HVAC business excellence. By subscribing and tuning in here, you'll get insider access to proven strategies, tips, and insights for the HVAC business owner who's tired of the stress and frustrations and struggles that are common to HVAC. Let's redesign your new, highly organized, and hugely profitable HVAC business where being an owner is fun again.
Hey guys, Pete here, HVAC Greatness. So let's talk about running your HVAC business as we go into the latter part of 2023 and we're looking at 2024. And I want to talk about some things that nobody else is talking about, guys. And we have to be careful because of the algorithms. There's a lot of censorship out there. There's certain things that you can't talk about without getting, you know how it is. It is what it is. My focus is to get you results, not to be a truther and talk about a lot of this other stuff, even though that's probably more important, but this is what I do. Okay. So my channel, I've got to kind of watch this kind of stuff. So ultimately the economy is in a major shift right now. Interest rates were finally raised. There's about an 18-month lag time. And look, I'll tell you what, let's not go into the financials. Inflation is going to grow, and there's going to be this thing that's going to happen, okay? Your money is going to buy less and less because they basically are pumping trillions of dollars, just printing it and mixing it in with everybody else's, which makes the overall value less and less and less. And so you have to make more to buy the same stuff, okay? And it's not going to stop. We've got clearly a recession in place, if it's not already here, possibly a depression. And things are changing. There's a lot of other things that are changing that nobody's talking about. Now, I want to talk about some of that stuff. If you're going to run your business today, I'm suggesting that you don't follow what's been taught and what's been successful for so many years, unless you're already at that fully mature business model. And I would say fully mature, meaning you've got at least one balanced team of a two-man installation crew, maybe 2.5 parts runners and everything else, who all they do is install. A couple of service techs, possibly even a third person, this full-time maintenance. Probably 3 people in the office, full-time comfort advisor that's selling. And once you're at that size, you're at what we would call a mature business model. Everything's, you've got a service tech and all they do is service. You've got an installation crew and all they do is installation, right? And it feeds off of each other. The maintenance technicians out there producing leads, service technicians are producing leads. And that's the model that's served us for years. But I want you to think about this. People are able to buy less and less. And so you're going to start to see less replacements and more repairs. This is inevitable. This is going to happen. So if you're a company that's smaller than that, and you're looking to grow, I'm going to say things that are probably not popular, but pump your brakes. I'm not saying that you shouldn't grow, but pump your brakes. It's not going to look like it used to. It's just not. It's not possible. And I'm going to give you some stuff to think about as we go down this path. When you have a well machine operation, it functions based on what consumers' habits are and how we can influence those habits. As the economy tightens up and the money goes less farther than it usually does, people's buying patterns change. They have to. It's out of necessity. It's not that they don't value you. It's not that your system's not worth what you're saying you want them to buy it for. It's just that you're going to see a percentage of your customers who, sorry, I got a cough today, who are able to buy less and less. Right now, we're seeing people who are using their credit cards to buy groceries. We're seeing people dip into their savings to buy groceries, to pay their bills. We're seeing two-family incomes that can barely pay their mortgage. We're going to see jobs dry up because corporate America has borrowed money to infuse it back into their companies to raise stock prices and values for the short term, keep people from panicking, but they can't last. So as they make less and expenses grow up, they've got to cut something, and it's probably going to be personnel. So there's going to be less and less jobs. So we're seeing this big change, guys, and this is here. So it's going to affect you. Now, the beauty is, if you're a professional, especially if you have a strong service background, you're going to be okay. In fact, you can propel yourself ahead of the game, but it's probably not going to be doing things the way that you were taught. So one of the things that you definitely want to focus on is improving your service skills. Even if you're a master service technician, go into something that's highly specialized and start to learn that as well, because we're going to start seeing a change in the economy. When people, and let me just preface this by saying I'm comparing this to other countries. I have lived in other countries, especially Latin America, and I'm telling you how they do things there, because they have this great gap between the lower class and the upper class, and that middle class is really small. Our middle class is shrinking, and so you're going to see people who they're going to elect to do the repair. And so you're also going to see people who don't have work, and there are some really handy, smart handyman out there, and they're going to step in and they're going to offer heating and air. They're not going to be licensed. They're not going to charge enough to cover business expenses because they're not a legitimate business. They're just trying to make a little extra money, and that's how they're going to do it. And so I'll give you an example. I've got a place in Panama, Central America. Okay. They sent a guy out to work on the washer dryer. It was a stackable, and the clock was stuck. So he had to replace the clock, the little timer clock on there. And the guy comes out, really nice guy. He pulls up in a taxi cab. He drove a taxi cab for a living, but he did other things on the side. And so he was their handyman for fixing appliances. A little bit later, we've got 3 mini splits in this house, and it was time to have them serviced. Guess who shows up? The taxi guy. And he did a pretty good job on cleaning the evaporators. You know, he hung up some plastic and caught the water and cycled everything else. And the one condenser that's down on the ground level, but there's 2 condensers that are up on a roof, and they have these clay tile roofs up there, and the access is not that easy. And he's kind of overweight. And I walk out there, and he's got the garden hose and shooting it up there on the fan side, on the fan blade side, you know, the evaporator coils on the back. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Cleaning the coils." I said, "That's not how you clean the coils." And he looks me right in the face, and he says, "Oh, this is good enough. It's not until it gets really hot that you have to worry about, you know, doing a deep cleaning." And I said, "No, that's not the case." But you have to understand their culture. If you challenge them, they get insulted, and you're the bad guy. It's a weird dynamic, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I've lived this before. And so I called the owners, and I told them, I said, "This is what they're doing." He says, "Man, we pay good money for that, and that's what they do." Right? Well, that's what they do. And I've seen this in other countries as well. And I had to swing my car by to get some refrigerant put in there because it had gone a little bit low of gas. I get out, walk up, guy hooks up the gauges, and just no purge, just shoves it open, shoves all the air that's in the line right into my system along with the refrigerant. No purge. I said, "What are you doing?" And he just big smile on his face. "I'm putting free." I said, "You just pumped it full of air." And he says, "No, I didn't." And I said, "You did." And I said, "You have to purge that before you open up the refrigerant. And, you know, you have to purge the air out." He said, "Oh, you don't have to do that here." I said, "You don't, dude, I've been doing this for 40 years. You don't tell me, you do this everywhere. And you not, you know," and he started getting insulted, I could see. And I said, "Look, if you don't know, let me show you how to do this." And in the meantime, I've got air circulating in there, non-condensables. You know, it's just going to increase the head pressure, and whatever leak I've got is going to leak back down faster. And so anyway, this is the way these cultures operate. Now, there are exceptions. I've got an auto mechanic, and he's really good. But I've went to other auto mechanics, and they just get it running. Okay, so in our country, in the United States, in Canada, we are seeing an influx of immigrants from across the Mexican border primarily, but from all over. So we've got Haitians coming in, we've got Chinese coming in, we've got all these different people, and the statistics to the amount that have come in, I don't believe for a second, because I've watched in my place in Panama, I've watched videos of local, YouTubers, and they're showing the facilities where they literally park the buses and they bus these people all the way up, out of Panama up into Costa Rica, going up through Nicaragua. They just keep going right on up through Mexico and process them in the United States. Well, we've got a lot of this infused different culture than what we have, different set of values than what we have. And this is not a race thing or anything like that, because we've got a huge amount of particularly Latinos, Hispanics in the United States, and they're some of our best technicians. They just are. They're really good, but they're not lacking our values. They're Americans, right, for the most part, and so they kind of understand. They hold themselves to a higher standard, and they get well compensated, and they do care. But there's people who don't. So, but what I'm saying is, there's a lot of other people who have nothing. While there's some really top mechanics in these other countries, in Mexico and Central America, but they're staying put. They don't need to go to some country and chase a dream because they've got their business here, right? So these are people that, they're going to work, they're going to make money, they're going to do something. And so what we're going to see is a lot of handyman type people that are going to be infringing in on your business. You're going to see this. They're just going to do it themselves. They'll call their buddy to do it because they dabble in heating and air. They dabble in appliances and things like this. And so this is going to affect, our business. But what can you do to counter that? Well, personally, individually, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, obviously, as professionals, you have to band together and disallow unpermitted work, and you got to work together, right? Because if you have to play by the rules, everybody else kind of needs to too. I mean, you don't want to be a tattletale. We learned that back in grade school. But by the same token, there's the homeowner who is getting this work, and they don't know any better, and that they think that air that got shoved into they don't know the air got shoved into their refrigerant circuit because the guy doesn't know how to purge. I've got a swimming pool at my place. They changed the clock, the timer that cycles the circulation pump for the swimming pool on and off. Okay. When he changes it, goes to turn it on, the motor won't come on. So he gets in there, gets him a screwdriver, and he spins it, and he sprays it with WD-40. And I said, you need to check the capacitor if it's got one, and he says, no, all you got to do is see it's working. All you got to do is just spray this every once in a while. That's all you need. And I'm like, dude, it's going to do this again. And he says, no, that's all and they just look you right in the face. And I don't know if they just don't know or if they're lying, but they just, it's subpar. Okay. It's substandard. I told the owner, I said, you can burn the motor up. It's one day that timer's going to come on. It's going to hum, and it's just going to sit there and hum and burn itself up. But you guys know this. I know this. So the thing that you have to do is when you go out and when you're working with your customers, you need to hold yourself to a higher standard, and you need to let them know whoever did this, if you can see it. Obviously, you don't have X-ray vision. You don't know what they hooked up to the system, other than sometimes you can tell if there's non-condensables in there by your pressures. If you've got enough experience, you can kind of get a feel for that. But it's not like we have X-ray vision, but there's a lot of things that we can see, and you let them know to the homeowner, this is not a professional repair right here. I don't know who did this, and I don't mean any criticism, but this is going to cause whatever results, damage to the compressor, damage to the heat exchanger, whatever thing they did that's affecting the operation. So you're going to have to raise the bar, and you're going to have to raise your standards, and you need to be known in your community as the while people are all looking to kind of save money, that you're the one that they come to, and they'll spend a little bit more because they really don't want one of these hacks out there, because it's going to happen. They're going to get out there and they're going to try to get it running, and it'll work, and then it'll burn out. Now they have to replace the whole thing, and somebody like you comes in, and so we are going to generate a whole lot of experienced consumers. They're going to be experienced on dealing with people who have no business working on their equipment. And so this is part of the change that you're going to have to do. And HVAC Greatness, I talk about this all the time. I don't have it up on the screen behind me, but the process, and you're going to have to set yourself apart from everybody else, because if you're just another heating and air conditioning company, and you're just, why should they do business with you? Because the consumers have been trained to purchase based on product and price. And they look at the quality of the product, and then they look at the price. The quality of the service, it takes a little bit of a more experienced consumer to really understand that. But you and I know it's extremely important. Maybe not so much between your legitimate competition, because they're pretty good too, right? But definitely between the alternative. And that's these people that are going to start to work on heating and air conditioning so that they can eat. And you're not going to stop them. So you have to position yourself as better. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that you need to step up and do some of the things that I'm talking about, but you need to, get really lean right now. Your money, your buying power is going to go less far, so you need to spend less. If you're used to living a certain lifestyle, you probably need to pull the reins back and make some sacrifices, at least for now. Spend less, get lean, get your overhead down, understand your numbers, and get dialed in on your pricing and know what your break-even point is. While you're trying to spend less, you want to try to earn more. And so you're going to have to offer some high-end solutions. You're going to have to get your pricing right. And the difference, that money, you don't leave it in dollars. I mean, you have to have, cash is king. You got to be able to spend, but it's losing value. They're just printing money like crazy. So you need to learn to invest that money. And no investment advice here. Obviously, that's not what we do. I'm no expert on that, but we do know that logical investments like gold and silver have stood the test of time during all these years, and it's a nice little thing to have. But there's certain bigger investments they're going to really capitalize on this, but you've got to know what you're doing. And so that's the kind of advice you want to go get from somebody else. But the point is, if you're going to get ahead, you don't do it by saving money. You do it by investing. Now, I will say this on investment. One thing that you need to do is invest in yourself. Get rid of the Netflix account, get rid of the HBO whatever plus thing, and stop watching TV and movies so much. Put the game in the attic, put it in the closet, and listen, just hear me out. For we're going into some critical times. And if you handle this right, you're going to be okay. If you just do like you always have done, you're going to fall behind. So instead of coming home and unwinding, watching a movie or two, and then spending time with your family, come home, leave the TV off, spend time with your family. That's important. Then when things settle down, go back into your office or your study space or wherever you go and start to learn. Start to study. Start to gain knowledge. Learn how to market for your own leads. Learn how to price your systems better and understand your numbers better. Learn how to, your technical aspect, learn how to take that to another level. Maybe get certified in something specialized. Now, IAQ has been making a really good run, and I think it's still going to do okay, but we're going to see slippage in that because consumers are going to elect not to do these UV lights and not to do that, this, that, and the other. Air smells fine to me. Leave it like it is. All I need is it hot and cold. Okay. Get it running. Right. And so the upside to that is, and it has been for a while, when you're looking at your prices, generally you have like a good, better, best, or best, better, good, right? On equipment system. But if you've seen this, a lot of the software out there, beside the 3 installation prices, the new changeouts would be the repair price. That's going to be really smart for you to do going forward. Let me tell you why. As your installation percentages go down, you spend less time installing because more people are going to elect to repair. Your repairs are going to go up. And if your overhead is ill proportionately assigned over to installation, in other words, that's where you make most of your money to pay the bills, is off of changeouts, you need to get some of that money over on and charge more for service. Well, we're already at, Pete, $350, $400 to change a capacitor. So we're going to have to change the way we package our pricing, but you're going to have to load those numbers. And if you take that $1,000 repair and you compare that to an $8,000 good system, a $12,000 better system, and a $20,000 best system, I'm just making these up. And you got this little $1,000 repair. That's pretty attractive. But build your numbers into that repair, and maybe that what used to call $1,000 on service, because it now has to pay the bills. You got to get more money off of that. You're going to have to skew your overhead over towards that. And maybe these repairs are $1,500, $2,000. But still, if I'm the customer and I'm looking at $2,000 versus replacing the whole system for $8, and I don't have $8, or, I don't know if I'm going to have $8 and I'm worried about other things, I'm going to pay the $2,000 and have it fixed. And I may go to that handyman if I don't know any better. So these are just some strategies that I wanted to share with you, but you don't have to agree with me on this. I've been shouting this for a long time. If any of you guys have been following this channel, I was talking about cryptocurrency way back. This is where it's going. I've pumped my brakes on that personally, because quite honestly, I didn't have a full understanding of what that meant for our society and our freedom, and decentralization is what I understood, but now we're seeing more centralized approach. So I hold a little bit of cryptos, maybe you do too, but and I'm no advisor on that, but we've got some changes that are coming, and you as a business owner are important to your community. So you need to network with other business owners, and if change is required, it's really important that you become part of that. And you say, well, Pete, I'm busy running my business. I don't have time to do this and time to do that. Well, if you don't take the time, you may lose certain freedoms. And we've seen this stuff coming for a long time. It's really important to be involved in your community and have say so, because some of the stuff that's happening right now under your nose, if you're not aware of it, it's pretty shocking. And if your parents were here and you were the younger generation, they probably wouldn't tolerate it. Your grandparents definitely wouldn't tolerate it. But there's this gradual desensitization to these changes. Have you ever heard the expression, the seething frog, where, if you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, he'd jump right out. But if you put him in a pot of room temperature water and you heat that water up ever so slow, the saying is, and I don't know if it's true, that he'll stay in there until he boils himself to death. He'll never jump out, because the change is just so subtle and so gradual. That's what we've seen. Now, because I'm older than you guys, most of you, I'm 59. I grew up, my mother was pregnant with me when they assassinated the president of the United States, Kennedy. And so that was around the time a lot of this stuff was starting to happen. I was a baby. I was young when Nixon took us off the gold standard, and then we started to see the value of the dollar really go down. And, the PetroDollar came in, and we became, all these changes that you hear about, and hopefully you're educated on how money works, how the PetroDollar changed everything, how wars, United States military and everything else, how they had us understand this is about our freedom and liberties and, whatever, but yet they would use it for their own agendas. That stuff still happens. The corruption, it still exists, and it needs to be addressed. And if we don't do it, it won't get done. So being a part of that is important. And I don't mean to get on a soapbox about that, but guys, it's time to do something. And don't get out there and, start shooting and fighting and all this other stuff. There's smart ways to do this. And by pulling together and communicating, that stuff there's ways to handle this very peacefully, very easily. But in the meantime, we have to expect that this direction that everything has been headed is going to continue. And so that gap between what your money is worth, like inflation, and the fact that everything is going up and supply is going down and people can afford less and less, what you make and what the money's worth that you do make is going to continue to gap. And so there's it will get to a point where people only can make enough money to actually eat. That I've seen that in these other countries, and we've never seen this. Okay. And it's my hope, it's my prayer, it's my intent not to even let this stuff happen, but we do have to prepare ourselves and position ourselves to be providers for our families, providers for our employees, and give them a career. And so I think a lot of the mid-sized companies, and probably to a certain extent some of the bigger companies, but I think they're the ones that are going to be hurt the most. If you really want to ensure your value as a business owner, become an expert on something above just basic heating and air conditioning repair and replacement and maintenance. Go into some type of a specialty. Look at, I remember I used to work on commercial refrigeration, and I got into grocery stores. And if you've ever been in one of those, maybe some of you guys work in refrigeration, you can testify to this. It's pretty cool. You go in those mechanical rooms, there's these compressor racks in there, and they've got these everything's computerized now with sensors, and they've got multiple evaporators working on a single, compressor circuit. Maybe they're in tandem or whatever, but it's really kind of cool. They've got these additional valves like an EPR and a CPR, and there's just a lot of cool stuff. But I've been out of that for a while, but that's a specialty, and you don't call a handyman to work on that. If you have a business that does that, it's pretty solid. Centrifugal chillers or big reciprocating chillers for commercial buildings. If you know how to do that, that's a strong value for you, and it can mean a lot of security for you, your team, and your family. So that was the basic message. Look, if you're running a business going forward, don't sit back and be idle. Stop wasting your time gaming and entertaining. Spend some time enjoying yourself and unwind, but don't use that as an excuse every day to come home and sit on the couch. Put your routine in where you're growing, where you're learning. You're out there all day working physically. I know it's mental as well sometimes, especially if you're the owner, but you can stimulate your mind as well and grow in the evening, even if it's only a half an hour. I think what's the saying? It takes 10,000 hours to be an expert on something. You may not be an expert, but if you spend 500 hours, just a little at a time, working on, studying these different things, you're going to be pretty darn good, right? You're going to learn how to market these things. And there's a lot of people that are professing to be these online, millionaires and everything else. And that stuff will always be around, but that's a bit like a pyramid scheme in my mind. Learn to do what I do and make what I make, and all these people down here, YouTube persuader, what do you call them, influencer, and then all the people that follow them, well, they all want to be influencers, and they're looking for followers, and that's not what we do here. I'm not an influencer. I mean, maybe, and I don't mean to be, but believe me, my tiny little channel is for guys like you, and you're a very, very small group. Right. I make my money when you guys actually reach out to me and you make an appointment and we work together, and I'll charge a little bit of coaching money. And I'm telling you, if you haven't taken advantage of this, you really should. It's very affordable. It's not only is it very affordable, it's an investment in which you get money back because you immediately raise your game and you start making more money. I started teaching the consultative service call. I think I was charging that program. We did a live session on it. It was like $500 or $600 to be in the live event. It wasn't much at all. And, you make it back on the first service call. I mean, if you do these things right, because you're not out there trying to do the hustle. And by the way, if you're taking these sales classes and on how to hustle people, and this is where your competition will go, people want to spend less money, so they're gonna advertise cheap, and then they're gonna get in there and they're gonna switch and charge them more. Bait and switch. It's a strategy. That's what businesses do, but not you. Don't do that. Learn how to be more of a consultant and learn how to communicate. Learn how to slide from this side of the chair, talking to your customer face to face, around to beside them and looking at that problem together, because you're their person. You're the person they trust. And so we look at all these different options and we go through and we do it right. Now, they're going to pay you for that, but you're a consultant. And you can only do that if you win their trust. And you can only do that if you have a good process that's going to get you through that. And that's what greatness is all about, is helping you to project the value that you have so that they can actually see that, and they don't look at you as, you're just another contractor. Why should I pay you more? It's a carrier. It's a 3-ton. The other guy has a carrier 3-ton. Same model number. Why should I pay you $1,000 more? And based on that, why should they? Well, you and I know why they should. How do you communicate that? Well, we teach you how to do that as well. The game's changing. I'm not saying that the old business model is dead, because it's still working, but I am saying it's changing, and they're going to figure it out. But if you move and you're ahead of the game and you figure it out first, you're well on your way to being successful, while everything else is shifting and changing and other people are lost. Pete Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness. Stay tuned. Stay on top of this thing. Go get them and hit me up when we talk about it. Talk to you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Pete. A quick thank you for joining me today on HVAC Greatness, or maybe just letting me keep you company as you're out running about. Either way, I sincerely hope that you picked up on something today that might help you and your business progress on your journey to HVAC Greatness. Want more? Make sure we stay on the air. Share the podcast with a friend, rate and review it, and be sure to subscribe to our email list at HVACgreatness.com so that you don't miss anything. This is Pete Ramsey signing out and reminding you why your customers love your business and what makes your company great. In one word, you. So let's keep refining your already good image and make it truly great.